travelers, and welcome to another episode of Tales of Teyvat, a Genshin Lore Podcast. Last week, we trekked our way into the modern-day desert and saw the Temple of Silence for the first time.
Human emotions? I don't get it.
We're talking about the Melusines and Zaddy Elynas.
Looking to see slug some visuals to go along with our audio? Check out our site at talesofteyvat.com for pics, vids, and cuteness, brought to you by Tiff's Extrasensory Skills.
No slugs. Our site also includes links to our previous episodes, all of which include an artist spotlight for each topic and some other goodies.
Finally, feel free to email us at talesofteyvatpod@gmail.com to let us know what you think of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. And remember to join us over on Discord in our Shades of Teyvat Discord server, a collaborative community area with the Shade Chamber podcast. You can join at bit.ly/Shades of Teyvat, no spaces, no capitalization. And you can come talk Genshin, Honkai, coffee creamers, cooking. There's been a lot of fun this week. Lots of basic white bitchness going on this week in the server, and I love it.
But in an entertaining way.
Oh yeah, just talking about coffee creamers and wearing shorts in the winter.
Yes.
We love it. But yeah, you can join us there. Again, it's bit.ly/Shades of Teyvat, and it's a lot of fun. But today, as Al mentioned, we were talking about the Melusines and their father/Zaddy, the dragon himself, Elynas. So when we first saw the Melusines, we were seeing them in the Fontaine trailer.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, and especially a little baby Seedwing.
Conducting the little water trains. And everyone was like, what is that? It's so cute.
Immediately knew it was going to be the Fontaine Aranara.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You know, I feel like all the latest Star Wars, like the last 3 Star Wars movies of the trilogy of trilogies, there was always one character that it was kind of like, oh, this is going to be the thing that they're going to sell. BB-8, Porgs, you know, it was just always, you knew exactly when you watched it was going to be. Now they don't do it. But if Hoyo worked this way, it would be the Melusines. Like, it's like every nation we have something that's too adorable, that's a non-character, that's just so freaking cute.
Yeah, I was a little nervous about the Melusines at first because we haven't really had a species like that before. You know, we have one-offs. We have one Velukashuna. We have one Goru. We have one Kitsune. So I was like, ooh, what is it going to be like having a whole different species? It's so Final Fantasy of them. But I think they did it really well.
But are they a species?
I mean, they're really just like guts.
Oh, I just had a flashback to Carole.
Carole the Goop.
Is it Carl or Carol?
No, Carole the Goop.
Carole is still goop in the bottom of the Narcissenkreuz Institute.
That's right.
Yeah, you can go visit if you haven't, just as a little follow-up to our Narcissenkreuz episode, you can go visit Carole the Goop monster in the bottom of the sea. And it's disturbing and awesome and just fantastic. And it gives me another reason to say goop to Brandon.
Tell Gwyneth we said hi.
Well, you just love being goop.
Well, the Melusines aren't goop, but they're cells. They're kind of like a weird version of a white blood cell.
Well, no, that would be the Breacher Primus, right?
Oh, those things having lore is wild.
Yeah.
Yes.
Just like,
Yeah.
I was like, what are these things? I thought they were going to be aliens, and they're like, nope, white blood cells.
It's like, why? Like, fuck.
But so what's a Melusine then?
Well, I think of them, and I could be wrong, but I think of them as similar to the Aranara and the Pari.
Okay.
But I don't know if that's accurate.
So they're enigmas of their nation.
Well, they are made, though, of Elynas. They're made from the wounds and flesh and booger snots that are all encasing the barrel region of Fontaine.
And blood.
Do you want me to do a quick recap of how the wounds got there?
But who is Elynas? We should set that boundary first, right? Have we talked about Elynas on the pod before?
Yeah.
We talked about Elynas in the Narcissenkreuz, but at a very high level because we knew that we would be diving into the depths of Fontaine.
So let's talk a little bit about Elynas. The Melusines call him father, just like the children in the House of the Hearth call Arlecchino father. I wonder if Arlecchino was inspired, possibly. I'm not sure. But Elynas actually started off as a consciousness in the abyss, just floating around in cosmic darkness.
Mhm.
He found who he called his mother. And this mother promised to make him a real boy with a real body, just like in fucking Pinocchio.
I want to be a real boy.
And gee, I wonder who his mother could be.
Yeah.
So the assumption is that the mother must be Albedo's mom as well, Gold/Rhine daughter.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense because we do get to kind of talk to Elynas for a brief second at one point, and he says he has a lot of siblings. And if Gold is his mother, it would make sense because you got Albedo, Susbedo, Durin, all the Rift towns, the Golden Rift Lord.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Gold could have more creations than we even know about.
Yeah. I mean, he says old and young siblings. So that kind of made me go, this is a lot. There's a lot we don't know that she's made and toyed with.
Well, just so you know, Albedo's the young sibling.
He also mentions that the siblings that he, along with his siblings, left their home beneath the surface of Teyvat. So to me, that makes it sound like, all of these gold creations were created in presumably Conria.
There's also a lot of parallels we can draw with Durin and Elynas, especially with their forms as well as kind of the end result that they face.
Oh, yeah. And their personalities, too. So both of them, once they were created, I guess before then, because Elynas talks about even when he was just a lonely consciousness floating in the abyss, like he would cry all the time. And you get the feeling that he's just very childlike. And that kind of mirrors Durin when Durin just was very confused about why everyone was terrified of him. Elynas says very similar stuff about, once he ascended to the surface of Teyvat and was basically playing on the surface and having fun, but then realized that him having fun was terrifying all the other life forms on the surface, which filled him with a lot of grief and regret and made him really sad. And just has this whole childlike innocence about it the whole time, which is really disturbing. It really villainizes Gold even more.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how we felt after we talked about Durin as well. Why did Gold do this to such an innocent creature?
And how much was Gold involved in manipulating them to be like, well, now it's time to go play. And what I want you to do is fly on up there and breathe fire on everyone, maybe put them in your mouth, swat them around with your claws. What did she tell them, to do once they got up there?
It almost makes it seem like Gold has the power to manipulate the abyssal powers. Almost like abyssal corruption is her tool, which is not something I like to say because that's kind of scary.
Well, it's weird because she has the power to use alchemy on abyssal energy or consciousnesses.
Yeah. But Gold, as we said, does turn Elynas into a physical form in this dragon. And as we mentioned, he goes to Teyvat, he has a great time, but he felt like his happiness was bringing others great sadness, and he decided that he had to die.
So he dies, but we don't know exactly how. And I wanted to talk a little bit about when he's flying around on the surface and terrorizing Fontaine. The Fontaine Navy actually unleashed their best ship called the Sponsian to go after Elynas. And it was accompanied by these other escort ships and everything. It was captained by Basil Elton, who was also a vice director of the Narsenkreuz Institute / orphanage at one point. And that ship, the Sponsian, it chased after Elynas for 35 days during the Cataclysm. And because he did, of course, surface during the Cataclysm along with all the other abyssal creatures. And eventually that ship gets cleaved in half and the crew on board were killed, the ones that haven't escaped yet. And that, if anyone remembers, that's that half a ghost ship that you encounter when you're swimming around. I don't know if you remember that.
With a Melusine, right?
Yes, with one of the Melusines, who's sort of studying the remnants of the ship. Oh, and just a fun note, the navigation logs from one of the escort ships that were accompanying Sponsian mentioned that the abyssal sea monsters attacking them were the size of cruisers. So very
insane.
large. They're not just all little tiny rift hounds, And then eventually all it says is Elynas fell and died. And I know that like the Sponsiana does this one last valiant effort to stop Elynas and like basically crashes into him at the cost of, you know, their own lives and everything. And I don't know if that killed Elynas or not, or if that just killed him and then something else killed Elynas. But all it really says is that Elynas fell and died, and then was, of course, sad to die, but also very glad because he didn't want his life to bring anyone else pain.
Isn't that so fucking sad?
Yeah.
Like, he's like, the fact that he knows that his existence is causing others to suffer, and he's like, yeah, this has to end. I don't know how it's gonna end, but I'm gonna do something to make it end. It's just so upsetting.
I mean, we've drawn that parallel with Durin, and it's also just, you would think like, if, for example, if Godzilla had like a sentience and they're like, all I can do is destroy? Why? Why can't I do something different?
Mm-hmm.
You would think that after a certain point, they're going to want something different.
Now I'm just picturing Godzilla dressed up like Urabashi with a lab coat and a monocle, just doing, you know, study on all kinds of atomic things.
I will say, since you mentioned Urabashi, that it did feel like Elynas was destined to die, similarly to Urabashi.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the Armada attacked him, and at some point while the Armada was attacking him, he started to bleed, and they're really not sure, like, what caused the bleeding. And then they caught up to him, they launched the boat at him, and everything. And it just seems very, like, surprising, and it feels like he was cursed from the beginning, and it's very, like, Gold again. Why the fuck did you do this?
Yeah, he should have never been there to begin with, really.
Right. And so when Elynas does die, his consciousness sticks around, and you could tell what people were doing when they were in or around his body, which is like, ugh. Like, ugh, I hope I never... Imagine feeling that someone was embalming you.
Yeah.
Well, I also love that he can like see inside his body.
Yeah.
It's like, why?
So what is the word? Introspective.
No. I mean, well,
Is that what you learn in therapy?
He's like, I spent so much time, you know, being a consciousness floating around. I really learned to look inward.
Quite literally.
Think of this for a moment. Like, here we have this giant creature, this dragon-like creature based on its outline that we can assume it's dragon-like monster. It's huge. It's bigger than Urabashi. We know from its remnants of the Barrow region, like you can see its actual like skeleton and stuff. Imagine just a little ship just kind of going boop. Sorry,
Yeah.
hit ya. Like, unless that ship was, maybe if it was Riceley's flying ship, but like I don't think it was. So it really seems like there was something else. And like, while I don't think that he necessarily was able to kill himself, and he had some kind of want because he led them around for 35 days. He didn't just go, here I am.
And they were going after him and like shooting him with cannons and stuff too.
Yeah. So like he didn't have a death wish, or else he would have just laid there.
Right.
I almost wonder, though, if he did have a death wish and Gold was manipulating him.
For 30, oh, you think like the 35 days, like where like Gold was like pulling the puppet strings, like
Yeah, I mean, Gold made his body. If we go back
maybe.
to Albedo's fear that one day he may lose control and destroy Mondstadt, this doesn't sound like he's gonna purposely do that. It sounds like he knows Gold fucked Durin over, and he knows that it might happen to him.
That's a good point.
it could also be like, we know that Elynas had kind of a transformation of like different forms. What if it's possible that like you're just stuck in too big of a body and can't not commit atrocities? Like, you know, I keep thinking back to Game of Thrones of like trying to feed a giant black dragon like Drogon. He's hungry. He's gonna get hungry. And of course, what's big and delicious? Humans. And it's like, you gotta do what you gotta do.
So that's really interesting, because I kind of thought that Gold's dragons were kind of like what Al is saying, like they come up to the surface and they're like, eating, but like, and like swatting things around and like just playing, really. And then they suddenly realize that, oh, they don't like this. But and it's also really horrifying to think that maybe their consciousness, even though it's in their body, isn't necessarily controlling their body totally. Like, was gold just like flying them around like drones? And they're kind of like, oh, this is fun. But then they realize like the things their bodies are doing that they cannot control are terrible. And they're like, oh no, I want this to stop, but they can't stop it.
Imagine a Whoppy drone.
But I think if you backtrack to the mindset we know Durin had at this time, so you have Elynas, who's like, I need to die, I'm causing people pain, but then for some reason continues to go on for 35 days wreaking havoc. And then you have Durin, who thought that they were in a dream playing with Dvalin.
Mm-hmm.
So it really does seem like Gold is manipulating these dragons or these consciousness that she's finding and doing something. Now, whether she's doing that on purpose, whether Gold is giving them, like, using the Abyss powers to, like, wake them up and then the Abyss is taking over. As much as I always say Gold is, like, top 3 worst people in the game, we don't actually know if that's Gold or if it just happens to be the Abyss as well. Like, this could be that Alberich guy doing his thing. We don't know.
Yeah, true.
Or I guess this would be before Alberich, right? Because they all appeared during the Cataclysm and Alberich came later. We know the Abyss Order is much later, actually.
Yeah, very true.
The Alberichs were in Conria at the time of the Cataclysm too, I believe.
Right. And we also now know about the 5, what were they? The 5 sinners?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know what the fuck they were all up to. I know one of them has a brother.
Yeah, maybe Gold was forced to create them and then someone else took over.
But we don't know it definitively that it was actually even Gold, right? Like, it's not actually, like, it's the assumption, and it sounds like a pretty damn close assumption, but there could be like this strange little side path where like it was Skirk's master or some other kind of like fuckery going down on the Abyss. It most likely is going to be, I'm not trying to like destroy that apple cart in any way, because it really does seem like it has to be her, but we don't know, and it could be even creepier.
I mean, it could be a collaboration. We know that the Fowl also has some sort of power over the Abyss since he trained Skirk and then she trained Tartaglia. So it's definitely possible. And it's possible that all 5 of the sinners went and lived their lives in the Abyss in some manner.
Yeah.
So we don't really know. But I will say that it seems pretty fucking unfair to these consciousnesses. And it seems really unfair. And to add to that, the dragons already kind of have a bad mindset in Genshin. Like people who, or in Teyvat, the dragons, we know all about the sovereigns and we know that the gods took them over. So now isn't it also a little sus that these dragons are coming and being evil? It's almost like the 5 sinners or Gold worked with like the sustainer of heavenly principles to like be like, yeah, dragons are bad. Listen to your gods.
Mm-mm.
So we do know the dragons that have been quote unquote bad have all been created and or not of this world. All the sovereigns we know are native to Teyvat.
But the people of Teyvat don't know that these dragons were man-made.
I don't think majority of Teyvat knows of the original dragons. Well, I mean, they also wouldn't know. You're right. They wouldn't have known.
My thought process is that when the Cataclysm happened, there might have been some pushback about the sovereigns. And then all of a sudden these like evil-ass dragons show up and it's like, oh yeah, wait, no. Conria is terrible.
Maybe she was pulling consciousnesses out of the Abyss and recreating the original bodies of the elemental dragons that were killed by Celestia.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe she was like, there's something in their bodies that lets them linger around, and maybe these bodies are the only things powerful enough to stop Celestia. And so maybe she had to recreate their bodies, but needed a consciousness to put in them to use them.
So there's a lot of questions, right? Then there's not a lot of answers because we really don't have a lot of information about Elynas until we start talking about Elynas wreaking havoc.
Mm-hmm.
So, Brandon, why don't you take us down the gory road of poor Elynas post-mortem?
So he falls and dies, and like Feeney said, his consciousness is still sticking around. And then these two lovely characters named Renee and Jacob start making regular trips into Elinus's body to collect samples of his blood. And just to recap, for people who have not listened to our Narcissus Kreutz episode or just need a refresher, there was this place called the Narcissus Kreutz Institute back in the day that was an orphanage. This is pre-Cataclysm. It was an orphanage, and there was a group of orphans in it that were close friends. I mean, there were other orphans too, but our main cast, who sort of stems out of this orphanage, is Elaine, Marianne, Jacob, and Renee. Now, after the Cataclysm happens, the Institute disbands, and after it disbanded, Marianne and Elaine end up joining the Maréchaussée Phantom, or the, detective police squad of Fontaine, while Renee and Jacob end up joining the Natural Institute of Philosophy and being science nerds. Renee and Jacob also end up eventually creating a secret society, which they called the Narcissus Kreutz Ordo. And the Ordo is dedicated to using Conrian technology to avert or bypass the fated Fontaine flood that they find out about. Part of that included experimenting with Elinus's blood and body to create neo-humans, and also just seeing what it would do to Jacob's body, which is a whole other thing.
We just love that.
Yeah, they're just like playing it by ear. So you have Elinus's body and his consciousness kind of lingering around. And so he's aware that Renee and Jacob are making these regular trips into his body to collect samples. Ew. And at Renee's urging, Jacob starts consuming Elinus's flesh and blood, which eventually gives him the power to open an abyssal portal, which I thought was scary, which let in a bunch of rift hounds that Jacob himself had to kill, even though he was terrified and was like crying while he was killing all of them.
Honestly, good for him though for fucking making it through.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have, if I were crying and trying to kill things, I would just fucking give up.
But he like slowly goes through this grotesque transformation over time. And Renee, of course, is like, yeah, just keep doing it. Everything's fine. And Jacob eventually becomes what looks like an inquisitus bastard. And Renee actually Renee's notes actually mention that he thinks that the place that the portal that Jacob was able to open connects to is full of monsters. And so I was wondering, since that ability that Jacob gained was from Elinus's blood, who was created by gold, could the Rift Hound realm be where gold is hiding? Or, alternate theory, are there Rift Hounds just like surrounding Teyvat within the abyss, like in all directions, and they're just waiting for any kind of doorway to open so they can jump through, no matter the source?
I would not doubt that, because they are fucking hungry.
Like, isn't that scary to think about? Like,
Terrifying.
Like this invisible world all surrounding Teyvat from all angles. There's just an army of rift hounds like just pawing at the door.
I mean, it sounds like every fucking day when I'm in this game. They just come out of nowhere and they surround me.
Anyway, so not to get too far into repeating the Narcissus Kreutz stuff that we already covered. Eventually, Marianne and Elaine, who join the cops, they are at odds, of course, with the Narcissus Kreutz Ordo, Renee and Jacob, because they're doing crazy shit. And it all culminates eventually into this big battle that they have inside Elinus's body. And someone sets off an explosion inside his body, and that explosion blows up a bunch of clockwork mechs. And the pieces of that go flying and stab into the insides of Elinus and create all these wounds. And from those wounds were created the Melusines.
Imagine someone's like, so how were you born?
I just, bathed in some blood.
No.
I'm bathe in the blood. I mean, do you think they Melusines of today really truly know that is how they were created?
I think they do, because they literally have a currency using the mechanical pieces.
Yeah.
Well, they're born with those tokens. They're like, this is mine.
Yeah, I think they know where they come from. They're like, oh, I was born with a mechanical piece because this killed my father or re-killed my father.
I don't know, because a lot of the Melusines no longer hear their father. Mimir is one of the main Melusines that we meet early on, is really the only one who can still speak with him. The others have kind of stopped hearing him. And in some cases, they have their own like lore almost, and like what they think maybe he was. So I don't know if they know too much of how they're there, but they do know that those tokens are quite important to them.
We do know that the one witchy Melusine, Canotila, she is like collecting all these pages that tell the story basically of what happened in Elynas.
Yeah, well, that's the thing with the Melusines is they all have their own obsessions and quirks. Like there's, I think her name is, I want to say it's Ahes, is the one that was like is obsessed with the Sponsian ship and like logging everything that happened to it. You have a mayor who's obsessed with painting, and yeah, you have Canotila who's obsessed with these notes that Renee left behind and turning notes into memories. So yeah, they all have like their own little pastime that becomes an obsession for them. I did want to say though that since they're born from the wounds of Elynas's body, does that make them abyssal by nature? And Tiff, go ahead and make your naughty by nature reference because I know you want to.
No.
Gotta now.
But you know what I mean? So I wanted to compare them to the Pari and the Aranara. So the Pari, those were created from the divine bird Simurgh, which was made of Kavarena, which I believe is something from the light realm. And then you have the Aranara, who were created by a tree made by Ruka Devata. And I would think, just my own personal theory, that those would be considered of the human realm because we know that gods are of the human realm. So does that mean that Melusines could be something similar but are of the abyss realm? Because obviously Elynas was pulled in from the abyss. And is that why humans are so grossed out by their quirks? Like Sidween's cooking, Mimir's painting, you know, like humans don't like get it and they kind of find them off-putting.
Ooh.
Definitely makes sense, especially with them all having like weird abilities too. Like put aside their like fixations, I feel like they all have weird little powers. I mean, the fact that Mimir can hear Elynas and that Elynas's heart is still like around and beating kind of just like Durin's.
Does this mean if a Pari and a Melusine touched each other, one of them would disappear? One of them would like disintegrate?
They probably both would. Wouldn't they just cancel each other out?
Become a fucking black hole.
Maybe the Melusines would win because they're bigger. There's more of them.
And I guess it really comes down to what realm is stronger, which we really don't know.
Anyway, that's just my own little theory to throw out there.
I've also been trying to come up with how I'm going to put OPP into OAR. And all of a sudden I'm like, that's a whole other freaking band. You down with OPP? Yeah, you know me. Okay, that's it. Yeah, you're not a bunny.
I knew it would happen.
But well, from there, we do know a few other things about Elynas, right? Where we were mentioning earlier that the Breacher Primus enemies are born from him as well. And they're described in like our Adventurer's Handbook and things like that as an alien life form created from the cells of Elynas. And they are also aligned with abyssal powers. Now, they seem way more abyssal than any Melusine I've ever seen. And each one of them has like a different description. So like for the Overgrown one, it mentions that they really defy the known categories of life. Like they even say they're not a shroom. And that Sumeru scholars actually debate about what they are. And it's actually a banned research topic. So no one in the Sumeru academia is allowed to research these creatures.
Oh, interesting.
Whoa.
Yeah. Their reason was that based on our current system of knowledge, this problem is like the definitions prescribed by language and the true nature of things, and it is impossible to have a meaningful final answer. So they're comparing it to one of their sins, like, you know, one of their like 6 things you shall not do, which is interesting. Like the whole looking into languages,
like don't stare into the abyss too hard,
right? And maybe that's because of Renee and Jacob. We don't know. So then in the large Shatterstorm one, it says that the Melusines actually perceive them as really harmless and actually think they're super fucking cute. And they also say that the earliest records of them showing up is shortly after the Cataclysm. So kind of just reaffirming our timeline of what we already have. And that they actually have been seen not only attacking humans, but protecting them as well. So showing that they might be a little confused in what their purpose is. Now, if that's the abyssal nature talking, or possibly maybe a shred of Elynas' consciousness talking to them, we do not know.
Elynas says that like he can sort of control them to a degree. When we first thwart Jacob from resurrecting Elynas, I mean that gets into the whole like Mimir and like her paintings, and Jacob is like trying to get the paintings. And anyway, we end up inside Elynas, and we have a confrontation with Jacob, and we end up getting trapped by Jacob. And so Elynas sends a Breacher Primus to break us free so that we can fight. But then it turns around and attacks us as well. But originally it was sent to free us by Elynas. So he can control them a little bit.
They're just still dumb as a box of rocks.
Yeah.
They know, like, protect Melusine, and then that's it.
Yeah.
And there's a Melusine Blatesy, I believe is how you say it, Glaisti, who says that they've actually been trying to raise a Breacher Primus, and they've been making plans to get acquainted with them on friendly terms, of course.
Oh.
I'm like, what else were you planning on doing? That's a little weird. So, you know, a little bit about the Breachers. We don't really have a lot of lore on them. They are really only around Elynas' body. You don't see them anywhere except for like the Spiral Abyss.
I just think of them as antibodies.
Can I ask a question with what you just said? You said that the Breachers, you know, obviously we find them around Elynas, except for, and as well as the Spiral Abyss. Now, I know that the Spiral Abyss is really just the whole fighting thing. Is there a connection, though, do you think, of what comes up in the Spiral Abyss? Like, is there more to the lore there? Or is it simply just, you know, it's kind of its own mechanism and I'm trying to make a mountain out of a molehill?
I mean, I think with any enemy, you could say that they might be abyssally corrupt, but we run into a lot of Fatui in the Spiral Abyss.
Okay.
But as we know, they could possibly be canoodling with the Abyss. We don't know.
Just canoodling.
Yeah.
I don't know why that was the cutest way to describe a Fatui. Canoodle.
A canoodled Fatu. But we also run into like the mushrooms and stuff like that. But we also, like, Tinyari has said that the shrooms can be corrupted by the withering, which can be kind of connected to the abyss. So I would say that you could stretch and make that theory work.
Yeah, I mean, they're of Elynas' body, and Elynas is created of the abyss, sort of. So
Okay. It just popped in my mind. Thank you for that.
maybe when like his wounds were created, you know, the upside down version of his body like also created
All of a sudden,
evil Melusines and worse breachers.
we made it over to Stranger Things.
Yeah.
This could be like the Breachers being the abyssal power versus the Melusines. His essence gone, or like without the abyssal power.
Yeah.
Since Melusines, from what we know, have never wanted to attack humans, but they have always wanted to protect them.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how. I feel like I want to attack humans all the time.
Yeah.
Yep, it's a fun time.
And early on, everybody thought that's actually what the Melusines were going to do. How could you look at that cute little face and be like, they're evil?
I'm gonna start calling you Fiendster Primus.
No. Well, I think it's a great point that mentioned the origins of the Melusines in Fontaine. You know, they were born out of these wounds, like Brandon mentioned, but they really weren't acknowledged right away. And, you know, Melusines are an all-female species in Fontaine. They are considered the daughters of Elynas, which I also have a lot of questions about. Does that mean that the Primus breaches are all, like, males? I don't know. And Elynas actually helped them to create Merusea Village, which is their home, which is under the sea.
Which is in his body.
Which is also in his body, which is a lot. It's just really a lot.
And they live there in Elynas' body all the way until Neuvillette brings them out into the world.
Yeah, so when Neuvillette was done swimming across Fontaine for however many years in his cute little, you know, Fontainian swimsuit.
As a little baby otter.
Yes, as an otter, which now I have. I love my otter. He goes and he takes them out of the body of Elynas, and he decides to introduce them to the rest of Fontaine. And at first, the Fontainians don't like them and they don't trust them. And this is a two-parter for them. At the time, we were in a post-Cataclysm Fontaine. And so some of the people in Fontaine saw them as a cataclysmic monster. And, it was because they really didn't know them or trust them. And they knew a little bit about what had happened with Elynas, obviously, because he had been torturing them. And also it was because they didn't trust Neuvillette, who had just recently been appointed as the Eudex. Which is very interesting because, like, if Neuvillette was around already when the Cataclysm happened, we don't know how old he is. We think he's thousands of years old, possibly. It's surprising that they never saw him or knew who he was. Like, it kind of feels like they stole like a folklore and like made him their judge.
Well,
I mean,
we don't know how long he was involved in the society in Fontaine. We just know that he became the Eudex like around the same time that he like brought the Melusines in. And I mean, maybe he was waiting to get that power to bring them in, but I think the reason that people didn't trust him was more because there were a lot of them that were just loyal to the previous regime, and they didn't like this new person coming in and taking over and doing things differently. And that leads into the whole Neuvillette story quest involving sweet baby Carole.
Oh, Carole. The unexpectedly saddest story ever.
Yeah. Yeah, so if you haven't done the Neuvillette story, please do. Outside of the fact that it is quite beautiful about Neuvillette in general, but yeah, we learn about Carole, and Carole just wanted peace.
And Carole was a Melusine.
Carole was a Melusine, and she just wanted there to be peace and wanted the people of Fontaine and the Melusines to get along. She was a part of the coppers, which I don't know why I want to just call them that now.
It's easier.
Yeah. Oh, cover. She had like a partner that she worked with who was the captain of the Special Security and Surveillance Patrol. His name was Watrin. And they even got like, granted, it was from Neuvillette, so it kind of seems a little bit funny, but they got like a Medal of Peace for working together. Like, so like they were doing good shit.
They were trying to fight racism.
Yeah, basically. And just like how well that went here, there were some really shitty people who were like, this can't happen. And the Melusine shouldn't be here. And they framed Carole for a crime, especially these two extra shitty people, Thibaut and Salvajar is the way I'm going to say his name. It's like Shabangoth, but I like Shabangoth. They framed Carole into a crime and accused her of murder. And they kind of like incited a riot of the people being like this, like they lured her to this spot, like basically to get her like almost, they basically gave her like the bloody knife kind of a thing. And the crowd was beyond. Like they were like pitchforks in the whole 9 yards, and the guards were like trying to like hold back the crowd and everything. And they finally like there was a clash between the guards and the Merusea Phantom and then the people. And basically Carole knew that all of this stuff was happening because of her, and she sacrificed herself to the crowd and was killed. She thought that she could like be like, look, I'm innocent, like I'm just going, I'm not even gonna stay away, I'm innocent, I'm gonna come forward, you could do what you want. And they were like, okay, dead.
Which really pissed off her partner, Watrin.
Mm-hmm.
And he had seen Carole as like a little sister. They bonded, they won medals and awards together. And he wanted to protect Carole and couldn't because she sacrificed herself. But it's noted that Watrin saw Carole as a little sister, and he had a younger sister that also died young. So he went back and killed everyone who was involved in her death.
Yep.
At which point you want to go, vigilante justice, thank you very much, Dexter.
Yeah, I know. I was like, thanks, Navia. Thanks, mob bosses.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the moral society and the Eudex couldn't just let that pass, because he did get revenge and killed all these people, and he ends up in Meripede. It's not an eye for an eye type thing, but it is one of those, like, you really get very torn. I don't know about you guys. Maybe it's my moral compass is a little shot, but I was just like, but let him go. He did a good thing.
I know.
We see it as good. And I mean, I think majority of players are going to see that as good, but
Not their families.
no, I mean, not the families, but if you think about it, he basically made those martyrs for the old regime. And had Neuvillette not gone through and actually give him proper justice, it would basically mean that Carole sacrificed herself for nothing.
Yeah, and Vautrin knew that, which is why during the trial, Vautrin like feigns this extreme anger just to showcase to the people Neuvillette's impartiality. Because even though he knew that Neuvillette was also really angry and like didn't want to have to do what he was doing, so he like puts on this show to display to the people that, oh, Neuvillette is trustworthy, he is impartial, he is going to follow the law, and you know, kind of gets the public to trust him again at the cost of his own prison sentence.
It's an oof moment because it's heartbreaking because one, you never want it to go to that point, but there was nothing that could have been done at that point other than going through with the trial. Like there's no I mean, how many people are dead because of this situation? No one's coming back from that.
And I think it's like you guys said too, it just comes down to the fact that Neuvillette had to still do his job. And if he had let someone get away with that, he would have just seemed biased.
Yeah, and nobody would have trusted him as the Eudix. But it did help change people's minds, as sadly as most tragedies tend to do, is in the after effect and hindsight, people tend to go, oh, wait a second. Maybe the Melusines aren't as bad. I mean, it wasn't like a switch jumped, but it kind of in the story, they kind of show you like a fast forward of the Melusines kind of getting more acclimated into society, and like the little hats that the guards wear all have like a Melusine symbol on it now. And, you know, you kind of see this like progression, and they do it. Like I said, it's not a quick thing. They show it over a nice little span of history where we get to the point we're at today where they're not feared. And people love them.
Do you remember when Neuvillette's Story Quest was getting ready to come out and they were teasing the new Archon line that was coming out and Neuvillette's storyline in like their live stream, in the Genshin live stream, and they made it seem like we were gonna hate the Melusines all of a sudden in the Archon line, and everyone was really fucking confused. That wasn't just me, right?
No. It was a bait and switch.
Yeah, it reminded me of like the burning Irminsul tree with the Torre.
Oh yeah.
Where like we never got that. Hoyo, where the fuck is the burning Irminsul tree?
It could still happen.
I'd also kind of thought that Carole was going to be like a love interest, because all of these Melusines all have weirdo names, and then there's Carole. I tried to find, I mean, like there's Kiara and stuff too, so it's not just Carole, but like Carole's the one that's like, did she, because she was early on in those stages, like be like, you know what, I'm going to give myself a Fontaine in me. Maybe people will be a little bit like easier on me.
I wonder if there's a French way to say it. Like maybe it's rooted in French.
Carole? Like that?
Carole.
I can say a French baguette. Oui, oui.
I mean, it could be, I don't know, maybe because Neuvillette found them, they could have given themselves this name.
Well, also Carole was one of the first Melusines to join human society.
So it would make sense that she would have, you know,
a little bit different of a name, maybe. But we might just be thinking it's different because there's so many people in the United States named Carole that speak English.
That's very true. That could be very one-sided there. Good point.
But I think it's important that many of the Melusines, they do have somewhat French-rooted names.
Yeah, but it's like Jason. That name is ancient, but no, none of us think of it as an old name. Like if an ancient character in this game was named Jason, we'd be like, really?
It's like most people would think, oh, that's so American, but most of the world is like ancient Greek. Hello.
Yeah.
This is where my Barbara hatred originally started from. Because I met, you know, D-Luke and Paimon and then Barbara.
And Lisa and Jean. There were a lot of
I don't know
names.
why I focused so much on Barbara, which, a side note, that's completely unrelated to Genshin. But when I was a child, nobody knew the name Tiffany. Like, it was just very unheard of. People called me Stephanie. So I was like so sad about it as this little kid that I wanted to change my name to Barbara, because that's how common it was. And
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Can you imagine?
You
I want to
could-
go from Tiffany to Barb. No offense to the barbers out there, but I like my name.
Welcome to Tales of Teyvat. I'm your co-host, Babs.
Yeah. Would you call me Barbie?
Barbie, yeah.
Don't get me started on Barbie, Tiff. Guys, I don't mean to sidetrack too much, but I just want to let you know that Tiff, we were playing a game today, and Tiff was given the answer, and she still wrote it down wrong. And it fucked up the entire round, and it was what Barbie's real name was.
Yeah, which is
Barbie?
not. Yeah, Barbie's real name is not Barbara Jennifer Roberts.
Barbara
Maleficent.
Millicent. No, not Maleficent. What? Millicent. Like Millie is short for it. Jesus Christ, she's not a
I get
dragon.
it up even now. Oh my god. The game gives like one person has to write the real answer, and I fucked it up. I didn't realize I wasn't the person. I didn't realize that was the person who was supposed to be writing it correctly.
Disappointed.
I also fucked up another round too. So moral of the story, don't play games with me when you're gonna give me the answer. Too well.
But the whole Carole story is super unfortunate, but it does lead into the Melusines being more accepted in society. And the people started to really trust the Melusines after everything that went down. And they actually had the Melusines added to the hat that all the guards wear to commemorate Carole. So when you look at the hats that the Melusine guards wear and the human guards wear, you'll see that there is a little Melusine on them. And that is in respect for Carole. And the reason that this whole story of Carole comes up during Nouvelette's story quest is because someone is trying to do the same thing to another Melusine in current day Fontaine named Kiara, not to be mistaken with our male guru, Kirara, and Nouvelette and the people of Fontaine all protect Kiara. So it really shows the turning point that has happened in the last 500 years in Fontaine.
Right.
A lot of growth.
Another Melusine that was around in the early days when they were still very much hated is Sigewinne.
Which is wild because she's literally 7 in my head.
I know. But yeah, she was around when the Melusines were first being integrated with humans and were hated. We're not going to get too deep into Sigewinne, but just to give a brief overview of her journey. She, befriends a human girl and this woman who teaches her medicine. And then when the girl gets sick, Sigewinne really wants to help her, but she couldn't because of prejudice. So her teacher gives her a potion to change her appearance, and that's why she looks more human. So she was able to easily disguise the parts of herself that don't look human because she has a more human-like face. And then she was able to go and save the little girl, save her friend's life, which of course means that she broke the law because there was a law against a Melusine doing what she did. And that's what ends up getting her sent to prison. So she serves her sentence in Meripede and then decides to stay after that.
Did you guys expect that backstory for Sigewinne? Like that she was a fucking criminal?
No, I didn't, but that was wild.
No, but I was very curious about why she looks so different from the other Melusines.
But also, just her being in Meripede, I just kind of figured she chose that life. And I mean, she does eventually choose that life, right? She chooses to stay. But I was like, oh.
Just showing you how fucked up some laws are and that they need to be changed.
Helping a child not die, eating some cake, and then murder. That's kind of the range of Meripede.
And we're not talking about Risley when we say eating some cake, okay?
Oh, we aren't?
We're not?
And I mean, people do it, but it's not going to get you sent to Meripede.
Nouvelette might send me to Meripede if I get caught. He's gonna be like, why are you on my man?
There are those that get sent to Meripede for eating cake, and then there are those that go to Meripede to eat cake.
Two very different situations.
Can I be both?
Yes.
It's one way to get there.
You want to have your cake and eat it too?
Yeah, I do. I want to have all the cake and eat it too. I want to bake it. I want to slap it like the bread Al mentioned a few weeks ago. Remember when Al was like, you got to slap the bread to make sure that it
gotta
rises?
slap the dough. Gotta activate that yeast.
Still not eating bread that you make, Al. I'm sorry. I'm going to eat the bread and I'm going to feel like the bread's trauma.
And take it on yourself. I was just going to say that down in Meropide too, we also know that Melusines do also go down there like to hang out with Sigewinne and fuck with Riceley and like put like stickers and stuff on his shit.
Oh, yeah.
But in the most adorable little way, there's one Melusine who's one of my favorites, whose name is Otnit. She just goes to have milkshakes with Sigewinne. You can just go walk into the infirmary and Sigewinne's not there, but Anna will be there being like, yeah, I'm here for my daily milkshake. You cute little fucker.
Meanwhile, Sigewinne is like making her mystery meat for everyone.
Yeah.
Well, she like retires afterward to have a delicious milkshake.
Because their food is weird.
Yeah.
Yeah, they got weird senses.
They really do.
They apparently like slime.
There's this one, well, it's actually a couple of them that you can meet down in Merusea Village too. Puka, I believe it's Canotila and Renata. They're going to make a birthday surprise for Serene, which is adorable. But they make this thing called poisson champ, and it's a bunch of fish heads sticking out of a stew.
Gross.
And it's funky. We do eat it and we are like, this doesn't suck somehow. But it's it's the ugliest meal. It's just, it's bad.
Speaking of Canotila.
I love that bitch. She's my favorite Melusine. She just like meditates in the corner, talks to herself. She's like a bubblegum witch, you know? Like she just gives me like witchy positive vibes, like kind of like Sabrina the Teenage Witch, but like the OG one.
Oh, yeah.
You know how like everyone thinks Kazuha is a stoner? She gives me like Mushroom Queen vibes. Like she is on some serious hallucinogens.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, her and Tinyari should hang out.
Knowing what's down in Merusea Village, I mean, granted, they do come up, but knowing what's down there, what do you think her drug of choice is?
LSD.
I meant like which flower? Like, is it the maritime flower that like, you know, fucks them up?
No, I also think it's just LSD.
It's LSD. It's Lumine in the sky with diamond.
Sky with diamonds.
Like she is high as fuck. She's like, she looks at Paimon and she sees a rainbow balloon with the string extending upward beyond the sky, which is creepy. And when she looks at Traveler, she sees a monster who could swallow the world in a single bite.
Okay. Can I say something kind of crazy though about like her saying the thing about swallowing the Traveler?
Swallowing the Traveler?
I mean, the Traveler swallowing like the planet.
Uh-huh.
Okay, sorry. I got a lot of things going on in my head, guys. So she says things that are like, but I see the flames on the throne have been extinguished. The burnt ashes have once again turned into trees. Flowers bloom with your every step, bringing change to an otherwise inevitable decay. Calls us a golden butterfly that has returned. There's a lot of weird little comments that she makes. And so this is all because of one of our friends' tattoo, and it's really what encouraged this. But it made me think of the H.P. Lovecraft universe of monsters.
Mm-hmm.
And in that universe, they have a monster called Azathoth, Azathoth. And this deity specifically is of colossal proportions, and it's considered a great and all-powerful ruler of the outer gods in this universe. I'm not jumping into H.P. Lovecraft too deep here, because that could take like 4 episodes all on its own. But this god is considered one of the creator gods, and they think that it created all of existence, basically.
Mm-hmm.
And according to some theories with this god, we are all just living in Azathoth's dream, unknowingly created by itself, which makes me think of Cinnamon. And Cinnamon, who talked so much about a dream world.
Uh-huh.
But we are just walking in these dreams. And it made me think of the Sealies, because Cantonila also talked about flowers blooming where we are. And it makes me think of Nabu, the goddess of flowers. But it also makes me think of Istaroth, because we know Istaroth has been able to manipulate time and change current day Teyvat in current day Teyvat. Like, I know that may not make as much sense as it should, but just think about the sacred Sakura tree in Inazuma. Like, technically that bloomed in front of us, but it seemed like it's been there for hundreds of years. It almost feels like Teyvat is in a dreamlike state.
Oh, I mean, yeah, absolutely. Like, they bring up dreams all the time. Like, I talk about dreamy, weemy bullshit all the time. And it wouldn't be the only IP in the Hoyoverse repertoire that would have done that, because dreams are heavily part of the storyline in Honkai Impact 3rd and Star Rail.
Yes, very true. But so what's interesting about this Asathoth character is that he's able to change, manipulate, create, and destroy anything and everything. So there's really no rules to what type of chaos he can create. And because of him, he actually makes creation and destruction. He's considered to have this infinite power. And they consider him to be a symbol of what they call primordial chaos. And in this Lovecraft universe, chaos is the mythological void state that happens before a universe is created. And Azathoth is said to be asleep, basically, in the center of the universe, and that when he awakens, he will destroy the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So it makes me think of Canotila saying that the Traveler is going to, eat the planet whole, basically. And it makes me wonder if the Primordial One is just sleeping, and when they do wake up, they will destroy the universe. And are we just in a dream that the Primordial One has created while they are healing? We know that we've talked a lot about having a fake Teyvat and having a fake sky. We also know that the Primordial One was seriously injured at some point, and that the heavens have been sleeping for an unknown number of days and years, whatever. And that even Nahida is surprised that they haven't awoken yet. So while H.P. Lovecraft is not a religion, like his universe is not, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, but we know that Hoyo does not stray from made-up things and non-religious sectors when pulling stuff. I mean, let's be honest, as much as I'd like it to be real, the Ars Goetia is not real. And we also know that the Commedia dell'arte is also not like a religion or something that can be linked back to history or historical figures or anything like that. So it's really not above them to pull from something like this.
I mean, they did that exactly with the Melusines.
Yeah.
Have you been playing the new summer event?
No, I haven't
Not
yet.
yet.
Not yet.
Okay. Well, there's this whole thing with like 3 goddesses.
The moon goddesses?
Maybe. I mean, it's a fairy tale story, but one of them is the creator goddess who like created the world, and then the other is there's another one that writes the fates of everyone, and then there's one that sort of keeps all the fates on track.
So that's really interesting, because my other theory that still pulls into Lovecraft is there's another god called, or another demon, I guess they're gods, Nyarlathotep. Totally pronouncing that wrong. It's Nyarlathotep.
Oh God.
Yeah, it's why I'm gonna call them Nylar for short for this.
That works.
So they're considered another outer god, and they're considered a shape-shifting agent of madness and chaos and ruin. Like, so totally destroyed. And their father is Asathoth. And he considers Asathoth to be a blind idiot god. And he does not like his father. And there's a lot of theories that say that when Asathoth awakens, everything's going to be destroyed. But they believe that he will be awoken by the second coming of Nylar, their son. So that makes me think of, if Asathoth is a primordial chaos and has a son who is going to have a second coming.
Yeah.
I mean, it seems a little suspicious to me, guys. Maybe it's just perfectly fitting in here, and maybe I'm just a little bit of a crackhead right now about this, and this is a total crack theory, of course. But I am curious if the second who came is going to come back to destroy the Primordial One when they wake up, and it is going to destroy Teyvat.
Ooh.
But Lumine's going to stop it. Or Lumine Ether, whoever you play, is going to stop it. Thank you to Mike for having a tattoo.
Yes. Oh, goodness.
Yeah, while we were on this theory of Canotila's weird voice lines, I just wanted to say that. So we could go back to what else Canotila does now.
Outside of predict the future?
She's a witch baby.
She is a witch baby.
She's a cute little witch. She is predicting the future. She's controlling the demons.
Well, so to be clear, she's using Renee's notes of all the research that he and Jacob did to create the Doomsday Clock, and she's basically using that to create like a dreamland out of their notes. And this is the Book of Revealing. So you like turn in these pages to the book and then you can read them, like it translates them basically. And then you can meditate on the book and go into this creepy abyssal looking world or room or cavern. Who knows what it is? It's basically a dreamland.
But does it remind you of Inkanomiya and the Chasm underground city?
Yes, I shouldn't say abyssal. It's more post-cataclysmic setting.
Yeah, it's weird.
Mm-hmm.
If you transport there and you look behind you, there's sort of like this blurry wall. It almost looks like a portal, and you can see the upside down, like the fountain from the upside down city and the chasm, which we know belong to a civilization older than Conria. But if you actually go through all of these notes, I'm not going to like read through all of them, but I encourage anyone listening to go and look at all the notes, the pages, I should say, from the Book of Revealing and read through them because it's really interesting. But to me, going through those quests with Canotila that you can do, it really seems like, you know, what you're going into when you're meditating on the Book of Revealing is like a simulation of what the world is going to look like, or maybe looked like in the past after a cataclysm, where they say that like no flowers can grow. And it's very sort of bleak. It looks like a lot like Enconomia, like Fini was saying. And it makes sense that you can sort of see the same room from that upside down city in the chasm that is from a civilization older than Conria, because we know that that civilization got wiped out. And this is sort of the research that Renee and Jacob did that led them to build the Doomsday Clock, because they were able to figure out exactly when the world was supposed to end with the cataclysm. And it seems, if you take some other context clues into place, it seems very cyclical, which is something we've been saying on this podcast for quite a while. That's also another theme that comes up in the new summer event, by the way, is that like the world gets wiped out every so often and restarts. Which is also a theme that has been explored in Honkai Impact 3rd. Sorry, Tiff.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I love the like, sorry, Tiff.
I've never heard of these things.
But it's really interesting because when you go in there, if Canotila goes with you, she sees something completely different. She sees like a beautiful world filled with flowers, sunflowers to be exact. So she sees like sunflowers and just like it's very like beautiful and happy at first. That's what she sees. Whereas we see this like bleak landscape. And then later on, when we go in again, she sees the flowers everywhere, like melting and dissolving into the scary place. And she gets really freaked out. And, you know, we know that she sees things in a weird way because she sees Paimon as a rainbow balloon with the string extending upward. And she sees us as a monster who could swallow the entire world in a single bite. So the way that I took it, and I think there's a few different ways to interpret that whole thing. She's seeing the world like before the cataclysm, whereas we're seeing it, what could happen after it. And the longer that we're in there, it becomes more and more unstable. And then she sees it turning into the after part. There's also a puppy in there who I think is Renee, who tells us to leave. But yeah, it's very trippy, and highly recommend that everyone go and look up Canotila, look up the Book of Revealing. If you haven't found all the pages, go find them and turn them in and do that whole quest.
Yeah, because after you finish the initial quest, you can continue to go back to add pages and meditate on the pages and such as well. So definitely make sure to keep going back. Similar to another Melusine we have over in the Weeping Willow area, we have a Vishop Melusine? Question mark?
Yeah, a
Pashiv, which is Vishop backwards.
So clever.
And when you do that whole quest line where you are, I don't even know if I honestly still fully understand what I did in that quest line.
Yeah.
You were moving a lot of stuff from one place to another.
Yeah, you have to like go and find keys and you unlock different areas, and then you like are helping of a shop because apparently the shops are good. And then this Melusine that we thought was a Melusine could actually be of a shop. I'm not really sure. You could actually go back to Pashiv and continuously give her, what are they called? Those little like blue things in the water, Tangenellas or something like that.
I feel like I pick those stupid things up all the time. And I was like, oh, I'm going to have 3,000 of these things. And I had like 4. And you had 3,000 of them.
I did have 3,000 of them. I sold that out quick. But you can actually continuously go back to her and buy stuff off of her using that as a currency. And you can also bring these branches over to her. And once you are done, she's like, okay, I'm going home now. And she leaves. And it's like, oh, have you just been waiting here this whole fucking time? I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't mean to keep you waiting.
I was so, when she got to go home, I was like, yay. And then she's like, I don't live in Merusea Village.
I was like, where the fuck do you live?
You got a home, girl?
She's a mystery, honestly.
It's interesting because Nouvellette has a character story where it says something like he thinks of the Melusines as a new kind of bishop, which is, you know, bishops are of the light elemental realm, like dragons.
Which is interesting because we would assume they are of the abyssal realm.
Exactly. Yeah.
So what is going on there?
Right.
Can I just mention one place that you need to go back to as well, since we're on that little train here, is we know that Mimera is a big quest thing that happens with Narcissus and Kreut's storyline. But after you're done with that, go back to her house because her painting of us is there and it's adorable. And then you could take it and you can put it in your teapot. And it's so cute. And I was sad that it took me so long to go back there and go get it. It's my little side thing for you.
As she paints with his blood.
Yeah.
Paints with his blood.
She
Oh
does
my
paint with his blood.
God.
But like, you know, she was shitty as a painter before, but then she got good.
I also just want to throw out one of the parts of the Canotila quest lines. You get to see Caterpillar in the creepy, bleak world too. And while you're tripping balls, you do get to talk to him.
Tripping.
Love some Caterpillar cameos. He needs to show up more.
Well, if you finish the Canotila ones, there's also one where you get to go back and he gets to interact with the little girl again. What's her name?
Aw.
Go hang out with Lenore. That's cute. With all of her Fanta.
And her grandfather's like, she's been kidnapped by a hilly churl.
We're like, no.
We're like, we got it. We'll go take care of this. And they have this really beautiful birthday celebration thingy. It's really nice. So if you like Caterpillar, do that.
Now, the Melusines are also based off of, or lightly based off of, some true folklore from France.
Yeah, it's an interesting tale, but it's basically like the Romans of Parthenay or of Lucine, the tale of Melusine. So it kind of follows the story of King Elynas of Albany, which is in Scotland. And basically, he's just recently lost his wife. He has a son named Nathus. And, you know, he's going on a hunt because what you grieving heterosexual men do, they try and kill things.
Woo!
And he meets kind of a fae or like fairy type person when he goes to a specific well, and he meets a fairy named Pressine. So they fall in love, he proposes, you know, they get married, and you know, she basically is like, I'll marry you, but you have to promise me something. You cannot watch me while I give birth or as I bathe our children. He's like, fine, that's perfectly okay. So she gives birth to 3 little girls named Melusine, Melorie, and Palatine.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like, oh, amazing. He's got 3 brand new babies and his son Nathus, who's like, oh my God, I've got 3 sisters. I can go tell my dad. I have got, you know, siblings. He rushes in, I guess, mid-birth. And so he breaks his promise already. And she's like, well, okay, I'm going to the Isle of Avalon, which I think a lot of us know that from ethereal lore, but it's like a mythical island off the coast of the United Kingdom. So they grow up there and they're like, hear stories about their father. And then the eldest, Melusine, kind of gets real pissed off knowing that her father kind of like, just because he couldn't keep his promise, fucked them over and like they have to live in exile. So they decide, at least she convinces her sisters, to kill their father, which pisses their mother off. And she imprisons all 3 of them. But Melusine, because she's the instigator of it, has a very special curse. And that is being turned into kind of like a monstrous fish-esque creature. And she can only find contentment and love, but they cannot see her on Saturday. Why does it do Saturday? No fucking idea.
She's got plans.
And just to backtrack, so the the kids, when they decide to murder their father, they essentially kill him by locking him away in a mountain. So the one kid gets locked away where the father is, aka gets murked. Another gets locked away in a castle, and Melusine is cursed to become, I thought it was a half snake every Saturday.
So it's a water serpent, basically.
Okay.
And in multiple different tales, it's with kind of a split tail. One of the most famous known quote unquote Melusines or like sirens is the mermaid out in front of the Starbucks cup. That would be technically a Melusine. And so when she's cursed by her mother, she runs away to France. Full on, like, fuck this, I'm going across the channel, we're going to France. And kind of falls in love with one of the counts called Count Ramondin of Poitiers. And basically, they fall in love, kind of the same story of Elynas and Pressine. And, you know, they're good. He doesn't see her on Saturday for like 10 years. So she has like a bunch of babies. And then one day he broke that promise and she is forced to stay in her monstrous form.
Well, what's even funnier about that is that, like, they fall in love, they get married, they have 10 kids together, they build this beautiful city together, but he starts to get, like, really sussed out about the fact that he's not allowed to see her on Saturdays, especially because this means that she's not going to mass. So she's skipping out on mass every Saturday, and he's like, oh, is my wife just not religious? Like, what the fuck is going on?
Which, in order to explain that, Sabbath in the Catholic faith, because this folklore is based in the 12th and 13th century, most people would have gone to church on Saturday.
So this man goes and looks at her on Saturday while she's like bathing, and he keeps it to himself for an unspecified amount of time, but it's considered to be a long time. And later on, two of his sons get into a fight. The one son kills the other. And he kind of has like a mental breakdown and blames his wife because she's a snake. And this causes her to turn into a dragon, where she flies away, leaving him with only 2 rings. But she does return at night to feed the infant kids that she left behind.
Yeah, she's got to whip out those titties at some point. Like, there's babies to feed. It's a really odd story, and it's very similar to the Selkie story of Celtic folklore.
It's also very similar to the crane wife story in Japan.
Or the snow yokai, where it's like, we have a secret, you need to respect our boundary here, and by breaking said boundary, you're fucked. No wifey for you. Which I love that.
Right, I'm gonna fly away now.
Exactly, respect boundaries.
It seemed very Shrek to me.
I literally wrote that in my notes. Yeah.
It is very Shrek. And that's kind of like the main story, or like the tale of the Melusine, or another name for it is the Chronicles of the Princess.
Yeah, definitely.
But I did want to kind of point out like the whole infanticiding of the Melusines I found like really interesting, because we have Carole, and then Vautrin is like basically compares her to his little sister who has passed. But the Melusines are really not children. They are grown individuals who have like their own complexity. And I find it interesting of how the Melusines go about trying to figure out humans any way they can. It's kind of like they're learning a second language, and of course it seems like they're children, because when you learn a new language, you start with the basics.
True. A very good fact. A very good thing to point out.
My only last little Melusine fact is that if you feel like you've seen Melusines everywhere, you have. There are 46 of them across Fontaine, with 20 of them being actually part of society, like with jobs of being a part of the coppers, and like Bea mentioned early on about, you know, running the little water boats and everything like that. And then we do have another swath of them that we meet down in Merusea Village, and then there's some others that are throughout Fontaine. But there are, if I said 48, I apologize, because it's 46, and now I don't know what I said. But it's 46 of them. Go meet them all.
There's a ton of them everywhere. So definitely explore Fontaine, talk to as many as you can. But I do want to say that Kirara is swiping at my leg over here, and I'm afraid that she's going to start drawing blood. So I think we got to switch over to our mail section. So we do have 2 messages today. Our first message comes from Travo, and they said, question. If the traveler had the ability to wear different outfits, what are your top 5 outfits from other characters that you would put your traveler in and why? As well as what details would you change for that outfit, in particular like the color, accessories, etc.
So I don't think I can think of 5 right now on the spot, but when I do think of one that immediately comes to mind, it's Arlecchino's. I love her outfit, and I think it would look so cool on Traveler, possibly, but in a different color scheme. So I don't know. Maybe like a blue. I'm gonna say blue and yellow because that's my favorite color combination is blue and yellow. Kind of like Navia.
I would say for me, I just want the traveler to have like an outfit based on each region. So like I feel like for Mondstadt, they should have a Knights of Favonius outfit since they are an honorary knight. And in Leeway, it would be nice if they had maybe something more traditional, like, or I know traditional for Leeway is different than like a traditional Chinese outfit, but maybe something like Zhongling wears or Yanfei, where they can blend in a little bit more. Same for Inazuma. It'd be nice if they had if we'd actually taken that one woman up and gotten the like silk kimono from her. For me, that's what I would like to see. I don't think it's necessarily another character's outfit. Of course, I could list off 5 of my favorite characters' outfits, but I'd really just like to see them get to wear something that represents the nation that they're in so that we don't stick out as much, but also so that you can represent the nations that you really like. It'd be cool even if like Dragonspine, the Chasm had their own fits too. Like maybe you change into more of a mining outfit when you're in the Chasm, or you get a winter coat when you're on Dragonspine.
Yeah. I would say that I play as Lumine, and my first thought while reading that was I want Lumine to have Aether's fit.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like he has a better outfit and it's more, I don't know, she just looks like a foofy little cupcake, and I'd love to see her in something else. But if I were to look at like characters, I'd kind of probably lean toward Jean, and I feel like it would be kind of the same reason why YB is saying Arlecchino, like it's a little bit more functional for what they're doing.
Yeah, pants.
Yes, aka pants.
I instantly think of Lisa's outfit, her Samara outfit. I would love either an Aether or Lumine take on that, but in their color schemes. Maybe a bit more yellow with Lumine. But yeah, we just need more representation. Why go to all these regions if we don't get to be pretty?
Yeah, and I have to say, I love Fiends' idea that our outfits, other than the color of the element, they should change when we're in different regions. It would be really awesome.
Or just give us a bunch of outfits and let us choose. Let us dress up our e-dolls.
Exactly.
Thank you, Travo, for your question. We really appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
And I will say this question and our next one both came from our Discord server. So if you want to ask us questions and you don't want to email us, you can always say it directly on Shades of Teyvat. So our next message comes from Hale, and they said, if you guys could remove something or someone from Irminsul, what would it be? Personally, I'd give the Hydro Abyss Mages the axe.
They are little pains in the ass, so I can totally understand that.
Absolutely.
But I'm drop kicking Goro right in there.
Oh my god.
Would you just do an edit and make him think that he's just Miss Hina all the time?
Potentially. I'd be into that.
Like, just rewrite him as Miss Hina.
This is like a really hard question for me because we know in hindsight that removing someone or something from Irminsul doesn't necessarily change fate. It just changes the perception of what actually happened in those moments. So like in my head, I want to be like, oh, get rid of Dottore, but like who's just going to get blamed for what he did in the end?
Yeah.
You know?
True. So
I don't know. I don't know if I can answer this one. It's really hard for me. I like really struggle with it, but also I think everything has a purpose.
I have a good one for you, Feeny, that you probably will get on board for.
Okay, all right.
I'm going to remove the transaction of Carole going to Barnabas, because if we know that she's going to end up with Tainari and Sino anyway, let's let her end up there without all the trauma.
But she would have trauma just by someone else.
You think so? If the transaction never happens, she's raised by her parents. You know what I mean? Maybe that doesn't happen and she just ends up there anyway.
I just think of Scaramouche's thing where like he removed himself and like Kazua's ancestors were still all slain, you know?
Yeah.
Like what
true.
really, like would she had just ended up experimented on in a different way? Would she still end up in like the clutches of Dottore and his psychoness? Like, I don't know. So I'm hard passing on this, but I really liked your thought there, Brendan. I liked your attempt.
I cackled because when you said transaction, I immediately thought of, oh, we're going to take out the time when Feeney accidentally pulled for Nilu instead of Albedo.
If I had wanted Nilu from the beginning, it would be a different fucking story, man.
Yeah, it's just the mistake that's a little harsh.
Honestly, it's Ella Musk's older sister that's younger. Get her out. We don't need her. She's gone.
Wow.
Just like, I don't want the confusion. I don't want the idea of like, is Ella Musk, how is she older than her very tall sister who looks quite older? I want it gone. I just want it gone.
I want to remove child.
No. There would just be another Mr. Worldwide, Brandon.
Maybe this time it would be Pipple.
But
No.
at least then everyone might hate him instead of half the people loving half the people hating him.
If fate is fate, I will still love him.
Oh no, it's gonna be Dottore. It's gonna be Dottore. Everything child did, Dottore did it.
Oh, that would be really hard on me, I think, because like, ugh. But anyway, thank you, Hale, for your question.
Thanks, Hale.
Travelers, that is all the time we have for today. So please make sure to follow us on Instagram, Tales of Teyvat Pod, or on Twitter, Tales of Teyvat. You can also email us, Tales of Teyvat Pod, to let us know what you thought of this week's episode and what topics you'd like to see in the future. Additionally, you can rate us wherever you listen to your podcasts so we can let other travelers know that they might find something fun over here. And if you want, you can also go to our Ko-fi where you can buy us a cup of coffee, which just allows us to stay up later editing episodes and getting more fun stuff out to you. Lastly, make sure to check out our Discord server if you're an adult, where you can hang out with us and talk all things Genshin at bit.ly/Shades of Teyvat. Otherwise, safe journeys, travelers. We'll see you next time.
Bye, sea slug nerds.
Ew, Brandon!
Slimy.